we can get this over with. Not that I'm like, not that I don't want to talk to you or anything. Uh,
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to 3D Reviews. Today we are once again joined by the one, the only, Kef underscore wins.
So,
And for those of you, just to recap, Karif runs a webcomic called Spirit Guild. Go check it out. Link in the description. Also streams, I think, every day except for Thursday and Friday, right?
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah,
It depends. This week's been a little bit wacky, but it won't be like that. Rob is right.
it's a little wacky tobacco this week, but that's
Yeah.
okay. The only normal thing is Garfield, which is what we're here to talk about today. The
Yep.
Garfield movie at long last since when did Tale of Two Kitties come out? Like 2006 or something? 2005?
I
Uh,
couldn't tell you the history of Garfield at all.
have you seen the other two?
I'm not a Garf head. I've seen the first one, but it
Uh,
has been so long and so
I
repressed of a memory
I
that like
know. I know. I
I
remember the one song that they play in the beginning, the Holla song, but that's basically all I remember. I know Odie was like a real dog, and Garfield was like an animated CG cat, and it was live action CGI, as was the costume at the time. But Sony has come back. They decided that they're gonna do an all animated Garfield movie, which I mean, to be fair, is probably the best thing that you could do, like, given the character and the comic, the nature of it all. But what is this movie about? Well, basically, Garfield gets wrapped up in this heist plot to steal a bunch of milk. So this evil white cat will get off of his dad's back and can get her revenge, I guess, for being locked away in this pound when they tried to pull the same heist several years prior.
it's
Uh,
about trauma.
Oh
That's
yeah,
very important.
is it? Is it
No,
about
I don't
trauma?
know.
It's not. I mean, there's some trauma there a little bit. They don't like go super deep on it, but uh,
It was mostly a joke, but yes, it is.
this
It
movie's a bit of
is.
a mess. And
Mm.
the actually, I'm gonna let you say everything you want to say since you said you had less to say.
Yeah, I have watched this movie and it has not gone out of my brain immediately. Rob has done a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to reminding me what actually happened in this film.
I'm sorry about that, by the way.
It's okay. I wish
Sorry.
it would have left. It really is the blandest thing I've seen in a very long time, and usually these kinds of movies are layups for me, right? Just like simple, easy animated movie. A plus 90% of the time. Even Hotel Transylvania 3 is like a pretty good movie in my book.
At
This
least the
thing is just
animation in that one, they have a lot of interesting stuff going on because it's Gennady.
well, you
But
see, I really like the plot of that movie too. Actually, I think it's very funny, but
oh
that
yeah, it
that might just
is.
be me and my brain
No,
rot.
it's kind of
So
creative. I mean, where else do you go with monsters but Van Helsing, right? It's like the
I, I
logical next
love
step.
I love sequels to animated and or children's franchises where the main plot is that the main character needs to get married or have a significant other for some reason or like is looking for love, right? We got Santa Claus 2, we got Hotel
Well, we're
Transylvania.
getting off
I
topic. We got to talk
yeah,
about Garf.
sorry, my mind
It's okay. Tell me
is
about Garf.
trying to push this away. I think the biggest problem is that Garfield does things in this movie. You'd think that like maybe a Garfield movie would still have some funny gags uh and some action, right? But I feel like it's just he doesn't really feel like Garfield that much. It
No,
really
not at
just
all.
feels like a regular cat movie.
That's the
Um
biggest issue. And
and
as I
what I'd
was,
expect yeah, sorry.
uh, oh, sorry, I'm cutting you off. You're supposed to be.
What I'd expect from this sort of movie is more of like a slice of life, like the Office style thing, right? Where Garfield is lamenting the problems of life and like following John. And if you
Which
want to
is
do a
what they
plot
set
where
it
like
up at the beginning like that a little bit, like the opening
yeah,
montage.
you'd expect John to like also be a bigger part of the movie in that case, right? And I wish we got to know anything about John, but yeah, this feels more like a classic like backdoor pilot or like an episode of Garfield and Friends than it does like Garfield the movie.
Not even that, because I feel like John is still more relevant in those episodes. Uh,
Yeah,
it almost feels like fan fiction a little bit, but not
yeah, they
really. Like,
wanted
oh, the long lost family member trope. Let's do that. Fuck it.
they wanted to put their like cow OCs in there
Oh
too.
yeah,
That was
that was like what that is the point where I was like, this feels like it was written to like as its own original idea. And if it was like its own original thing that wasn't a Garfield movie, I feel like it would have been a bit better. But they were like, it's too risky. It's a weird idea. What IPs do we have that we could just? Oh, you have a movie about a cat. We have the rights to Garfield. Fuck it, Garfield movie. And we'll put it on Memorial Day weekend, so it's like it's even less of a risk. Even though I, by
yeah.
the way,
Well,
there were four other seats that were paid for at this theater
mhm.
that I went to, because I went to the 3D 40X screening. They did not show up. I was the only person to show up for the screening this morning.
Man, crazy. I had one family next to me and some guy by himself that was eating food. I go to an Alamo Draft House, by the way, so this movie isn't even in the realm of possibility for like children to show up at, right? It's like one of those art housey adjacent theaters. They show a lot of like it's the A24 crowd theater, right? Not to
Yeah.
dwell on that too much, but that's what it is. And there was still a family that showed up, and I was kind of pissed. I wanted to be the only person in that theater. And it was like in the middle of the day too, right? So I there was no reason for anybody to be there, and yet they were. Goddamn. The
Uh,
other thing that would have made this a safe bet is that oh, it's going up against Furiosa, an R-rated like
yeah.
big fantastical
And
movie
you've
for
got
adults.
you've got
Yeah.
Chris Pratt as the main voice, which I don't think Chris Pratt is as big of a box office draw as he was when they probably announced him voicing Garfield. Because I remember when they announced him voicing the character, it was right after they announced him voicing Mario, and everyone was still clowning on Illumination and Nintendo for that. And then they were like, "Oh yeah, he's voicing Garfield too," and everyone thought it was a joke, which is
Yeah.
already a great sign. But no, he comes in, he does, and then they have Samuel L. Jackson voicing his dad. So like that's another big actor. But I will have to say, Karif, and you're gonna hate me for this.
Mhm.
If I had a nickel,
Yeah, if you had a nickel.
if I had a nickel for every time Samuel L. Jackson played a large, rotund, animated cat in a shitty
Oh my
animated children's
god.
movie, I would have two nickels.
Oh, I forgot it was in
He
that
was in
movie.
Paws of
Holy
Fury. He played
shit.
the big
I
cat in
fucking
that one.
watched that shit.
Yeah, I
I
know.
watched it in theaters too, and I still didn't. Oh my god, I still didn't remember.
This
Holy fuck.
movie is a mess, and I think everyone's saying it doesn't feel like Garfield is right. Garfield should not care about two things, John and Odie, and he very much cares about John. Even though like some like I don't know, they kind of go back and forth on it, but like he treats John way better than he does in the comic. Like in the comics, he kind of is just kind of indifferent to John, or like he thinks John is a dipshit. He doesn't think
Yeah, because
John
John
has.
is a dipshit in the
Yeah, but he
comics.
has
Or
no John has no time to be in this movie really. Like
yeah,
he's the guy that calls a phone. He's on the
yeah.
phone most of this movie, calling like some animal lost
Biggest
help thing.
retcon, John is afraid of dancing in this movie at the very beginning for like 2 seconds when the only thing anybody knows about John anymore
He
is that
loves
he's
to
like an
dance.
overconfident dancer.
Yeah,
So
and he's also really nice to Odie, which makes extra less sense because if you know anything about the comics, he doesn't like. I mean, it's not that he doesn't like Odie. He just treats Odie like shit. He treats everyone around him like they're stupid and dumb, which they typically are. And I mean, Normal at least gets a cameo at the end during the obligatory dance sequence. We need to pad out the runtime, so we have to have this big dance sequence. Uh, this movie, it feels a little bit too active to be a Garfield movie. Like the opening montage felt like a Garfield movie, where it's like showing Garfield's day to day, and it like the way that the shots, the cinematography is done, it feels like you're looking at three panels of a comic. And
yeah,
some of the
honestly,
gags in
yeah.
this movie were decent. There was like maybe two or three that I actually were like, oh, that's pretty funny. Um, but once the story gets started, it just stops being a Garfield movie. And I
It
mean,
just stops being at all like
any
anything
yeah,
interesting.
it just it exists because we have the rights to the IP and we want to sell tickets and it I think let's start off with the positives. I think the animation and the art style, the art direction was really good. It was very vibrant, very bright. I like
It's
that
competent.
they were able to bring John Davis's art style into CG in a mostly competent way. I wish they would have leaned a little bit more into that, kind of like a Peanuts movie sort of thing, where they
Mhm.
really leaned it. But like you can tell certain key poses were taken from the comic. It's like they wanted to do a Peanuts movie kind of thing, but they were either they didn't have the resources or they were too scared to fully commit to that. Uh, but it's just like you just meet this white cat. Like a lot of these characters aren't from the comic, and that's why it doesn't feel like a Garfield movie. There's no Nermal. Like I said, John's barely in it. Odie's just kind of like a sidekick to Garfield, who Garfield treats very well throughout the movie, and Odie just seems to be fine going to Garfield's beck and call for everything. Uh,
Yeah, he's a pushover.
yeah, his dad is like not in the comics. That white cat just comes out of nowhere, and it just felt so rushed. It felt like they were just
Yeah.
pushing, 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 get to the plot, get to the plot, get to the plot, and then the plot is like this feels like it's from a completely different movie from what you've set up here. I honestly think it should have just been kind of like a day in the life of Garfield, and maybe something upsets this day in the lifeness, but like I never really expected like a father son bonding movie out of a Garfield story, right? That feels like it's the farthest thing from that character. I mean, sure, they write Garfield to be like grumpy and pessimistic, which is
And
still on brand with the
emotionally
character.
distant. Yeah.
Yeah, but they don't go. I guess they didn't want. They probably didn't want people to dislike him because Garfield is kind of a dick. Uh, but still, when you take those aspects out of the character, you kind of take the teeth out of the character, which is like he's a dick, but people still love
Yeah.
him for it, right? Here he's just kind of mildly grumpy, and then it turns into standard kids movie fare. It was just a lot of stuff in this movie that I've seen before. I wish there was a little bit more going on between the conflict of Garfield and his dad. That felt very rushed, uh, and tacked on, and it was like, so is his dad like being sneaky? No, he's not. It just, I wish there was a little bit more going on with the dad. They I don't know.
I wish it would have decided whether or not it actually wanted to be a Garfield movie because there's some sort of like fun in maybe it just being like this thing that is wildly different from the Garfield that we know, right? Uh if it fully committed to that, but it feels like it's kind of like splitting the difference a little bit,
I would
right?
have rather it just have been more about Garfield, or just make a whole new IP in general. Make a movie about these animals trying to break into a dairy farm to save a
Yeah.
cow. Like that could have been fun, but that has nothing to do with
It would have
Garfield.
been like the nut job
Yeah,
level of
it was like,
success, but it would have been a different movie, I guess.
and then they were like continuously adding characters like really late into the movie, like the security guard. I feel like that the bull character was kind of added late into the movie. It, like the thing is like they have to break into the thing, but then you add this whole thing about this subplot with the bull trying to get back with his cow wife, and it's like, what does this have to do with anything? Oh, this is what the movie's about now. Okay
It's
then.
very much about that too. It's so weird how much it
Yeah.
is about that.
Did you
Like,
stick through the entire credits, by the way?
I didn't stick through all of the credits. I kind of dipped out once they started showing regular cat videos.
I so there is a song that plays during the credits, which I told you, like I was like, there it feels like they had an entire scene, like a villain song for the white cat that just got cut, but they still had the song recorded, so they kept it and put it in the credits. And the song is
Oh,
decent, but like I'm listening to it and I can think of all the visuals that would have gone into it, and I was like, well, why did you cut this from the movie? Was it just too expensive? Was it for time reasons? I mean I'm glad we still get the song, but it felt very weird that they would do that. They would just cut an entire musical sequence. And then the
I mean, they did
very
that for Frozen too. My sister had the soundtrack to that, so I know what that is about. But like,
the and
yeah, putting it at the very end is like weird.
at the very very end, they
Yeah.
had a comic strip that I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it was actually drawn by Jim Davis. Just a
Mm.
3-panel comic strip about Garfield just standing there, making a joke about a sequel. Like he's like, "What are you still doing here? Are you waiting for a sequel?" Um,
Oh, that's it.
yeah,
Oh
I mean,
boy.
at least because I was thinking like, is all this art? They had this art going on during the credits, right? And to push the whole bull and cow story past home, they had like all this art and like little animated bits done for that love story, like after like they're living their
Oh.
life, and it was like, but this has nothing to do with Garfield. What do you mean, bro? Why and then the whole thing with like the live action cat footage is like, why not just like animate Garfield doing all this stuff? Like
Yeah,
why
why
it
not?
felt lazy. Like I get the
So
idea, but it felt lazy.
Rob has brought up an interesting point, and I do want to ask then, Rob. Rob sent me like three messages in Discord,
Hmm.
one at 7:39, one at 7:52, and one at 8:54. Uh, were you live chatting to me your reaction because you were the only
Some
person in the theater?
somewhat. Yeah, oh no, so no, because at the beginning when Garfield is like leaving to go on the quest, he's like, "Well, I have no reason to do this. I don't care about my dad." But then the white cat's like, "Ah, well, you got to go anyway because I said so." And I was
Yeah.
like, that's kind of weak. Like there's a lot of plot contrivances in this movie. Like a lot of them. There are a lot of
Mm.
continuity errors in this movie, which I was like, I don't understand how this got passed. It just felt like a movie they didn't really care about, and they just had to make the movie because that was what was on the docket. For
Yeah.
example, and I know people are gonna say, "Oh, well, you're nitpicking," but it's like, come on, did you not? Did the filmmakers not watch the movie they were making? Like, so when Samuel L. Jackson, his dad, his name is Vic, his dad's name is Vic, is talking
Oh
about
my god,
how
I
I
forgot
didn't,
about that.
yeah, I didn't actually leave you behind. I had to like find food for you.
Yeah.
Garfield, they show Garfield in the takeout box, but like all the lasagna is gone except for one slice. And if I'm remembering correctly, I'm pretty sure there was like 5 slices of lasagna in there when Garfield was in there at the beginning. So like that was a weird continuity error. There was a continuity
I
error.
noticed that, but I kind of chalked it up to oh, this is two people's different perspectives. It wouldn't exactly line up
Yeah, but then
anyways, yada
but then
yada.
something else happens later
Uh,
when they uh when they're on the train and they have the ropes tied around them, and I'm like, oh, they're gonna do fun rope stuff. What that sounds really bad. Out of that, I
Fun
don't mean
rope
it like that. I
stuff.
don't mean it like that. You know what I mean? They're gonna do some gags with the rope, and then
Oh, they're gonna
Garfield is
gag
like,
with the rope?
yeah,
Okay, cool.
okay, yeah, and then so like Garfield's tied up to his dad, right? But then he gets untied in the next shot out of nowhere. I was like, oh, I guess they're not really tied up. Like they don't need the rope around them. They could just take it off. And then he
Oh
gets
yeah.
tied up again, and then he's untied, and then his dad gets untied, and I'm like, so why do they still have the rope around them at all if they can just get out of the rope? Why would they retie it around themselves? Like it didn't make any sense. They complete, and I know that this movie was probably like in production at the same time as Songbirds, a Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, but the whole idea of using drones as like a weapon, delivery drones as a weapon, was something that they did in the most recent Hunger Games movie, which came out in
Mm.
November. So I think it's just a
And then they played
coincidence.
the Top Gun theme,
Yeah,
and
and
they
then they make
played
a
the Mission
Tom
Impossible
and then
theme.
they make a Tom Cruise reference. So it's like whoever's working on this movie really wants Tom Cruise to notice them for some reason.
Well,
Uh,
I think it's just because he's in the cultural conversation
yeah, but
again.
that was another issue I had with the movie. There were so many pop culture references, and Garfield really isn't known for doing that. Like
Yeah, so
he's
importantly, they use apps. They use
there's a lot of
mobile
apps, a
apps.
lot
And
of
I'm pissed.
contrivances are fixed with apps.
There's
Uh,
a lot of there's a lot of product placement.
oh, there's
Uh
Walmart, Olive Garden,
Pop chips nacho
Pop.
flavored,
That was
which
like
don't even
really
fucking
egregious.
what do you mean?
I think there was a few other things. Bluetooth, which they
Walmart.
talked about was like a brand, even though is Bluetooth a brand?
That's what they say in the movie is that he doesn't
Yeah.
have to pay for the brand if he like doesn't call them Bluetooth,
Or yeah,
right?
or if he doesn't like use the Bluetooth, he doesn't. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just like I don't. It was just a lot of stuff that just felt very much. We just have to get this movie made.
We gotta
Uh,
ship the movie.
yeah, we gotta get it out the door for Memorial Day weekend. And then the villains at the end that just turn on the white cat just out of nowhere. They're just like, you know what? We're
Yeah.
not evil now. We decided, and it's like, where did this come from? Uh, and this is also stuff that I've seen before, stuff that has been done better. If you've ever seen the Box Trolls, they do a similar thing with the henchmen in that movie, but the whole movie, the henchmen are talking about like what it means to be evil. Like they're like,
I
are we
mean,
the bad guys? Like they're questioning if they're doing the right thing the whole
even
time.
Rise of Skywalker does this. It's not like the most like
I know
creative
it's
thing to do is have
yeah,
the
but they just
henchmen turn on villains.
yeah, I know it happens in a lot of especially kids movies, but it was just so lazily done here. It was just like,
Yeah.
all right, I guess they're good now because Garfield and his dad are buddies. Okay.
It actually brought them together. Your plan has failed.
Yeah, I
That's
don't
what they
know.
said or
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
your revenge plan failed because it brought them together instead of them hating each other or something, which wasn't really her plan to begin with, but whatever. Um, just a mess, just an absolute mess of a movie. And I mean, I pretty much it was more or less what I expected it to be. It was a little bit worse than I expected it to be, but it was basically what I expected. It's just generic kids movie with the Garfield paint on it, and it and John was barely in the movie. They do nothing with his character. He shows up to call some number, and then he shows up to get Garfield from the pound, and then he's just kind of
Yeah,
there.
you'd want John to be a little bit more of an active doofus. Especially, you know what I thought they were gonna do? I thought they were gonna have Liz more in the movie. Because they make a point at the beginning to have like the person that works at the Italian restaurant say, like, oh, you should get on those dating apps or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? And Liz shows
Liz
up like once.
cameos. Yeah.
Yeah, Liz
Well,
cameos, but like you
I
think
thought
that that's another big thing, especially if they're gonna talk about like, oh, family.
yeah, I
Right,
thought
yeah.
that John was like gonna go out and search for Garfield on his own. Like that was gonna be a subplot, and then that was gonna tie in at the end where the white cat would get a hold of John and put him in danger, forcing Garfield to make like some sort of decision.
Mhm.
Uh, and then that doesn't happen. They're just it's
Yep.
like they didn't know what to do with John. So they just kept him on the phone, which and then
Yeah.
making more pop culture references, which some of it was kind of like, oh yeah, that's kind of funny how they like they're like because there's a joke where the robot on the phone says, press one for English, press two for Spanish, press three for Pigland, press four for gibberish, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that's kind of somewhat funny, but
Oh, they totally run that into the ground though. They basically do
yeah,
the Family Guy thing where they just tell you the joke at the end. Where the joke is eventually that they say like, we're doing this to give you a false sense of security,
oh yeah,
to
they
feel like you're in
explain,
control.
yeah.
And like that's the joke. I get it. And it's not like children won't get it either. And like what's the loss if they don't? You know, that's the other thing.
I don't
uh
know. It's a shame. It doesn't feel like a Garfield movie. It's what a lot of people have been saying, and I'm here to say that it doesn't feel like a Garfield movie. It
yeah.
feels like it was supposed
I'll
to be
say
something
something that might
else.
be a little
Yeah.
controversial. I think Chris Pratt did a little bit of a Garfield inflection
Oh
in
no,
the
he was
movie.
definitely better here. Like I didn't hear Chris Pratt at all.
I heard him sometimes,
Yeah.
but like I do think he's doing like the classic Garfield animated
The very
movie inflection.
monotone, like
Yeah.
gruff, not gruff, but the monotone, annoyed, apathetic voice.
Yeah. And I think that he's doing a good job at that. I don't know. Yeah. Snoop Dogg shows up for like 2 seconds.
Yeah, I there was like a
Yeah.
lot of voice cameos. So we're like, oh wow, this person was in the movie. When? But it must have just been the cameo. Uh, I don't really have much else to say. I mean, I can go into the 3D now. Obviously, I'm not really recommending this movie. Um, I
I
don't.
did not watch it in 3D, but I can't imagine it added anything.
Uh, well,
Like
the
maybe the
3D,
ending, right? The
the
drone sequence and the like
yeah, I mean
the thing at the end,
the
but
3D
yeah.
was fine. There were some fun pop out moments. There's like you remember the
Oh, a
moment
movie
where
that does
Garf?
pop out crazy.
Okay, come on.
No, I'm serious. Sorry, I usually say that in jest, but like I feel like most movies don't even aim for pop out these days. It's more
Yeah.
about like depth.
It's not well. I mean, they have that too. But like when Garfield's being flung when they're trying to get him on the train, those shots where he's flying towards the camera, he's coming out of the screen a bit. There's a moment where Garfield puts like both of his hands out like L's, or it's like I'm not really
Uh,
explaining it, but like his hands come out of the screen. Obviously, when they're looking down from when they're really up high, there's a lot of depth there, especially when Garfield and Odie get tied up by their feet in the abandoned mall and you're looking down. I mean, it's not
mhm.
enough for me to like recommend the movie. The movie's not very good at all. The 4D effects were serviceable. They had water splashes, they had the moving seats, they actually had some bubbles at one point. Um, I don't know, this movie just it just feels like a mess. It just feels like they didn't know what to do. It felt like they didn't know what to do.
Yeah, they just
They
got
just,
assigned a Garfield movie and
yeah.
so didn't know what to do. Yeah.
It feel, you know what it feels like? Oh, can I put conspiracy theorist hat on for a second? I feel like I had another conspiracy theorist hat for this movie, but I forgot what it was. Uh, I think it's because Spider-Verse Part 2 was supposed to come out around this time. And that movie ended up
Oh.
getting pushed back, and they were like, well, we need something to come out right now, so let's rush this movie out the door. uh
Well, they asked DNEG to do it, which is something that I do know, and DNEG is like a special effects like company
yeah,
usually,
they
right?
do
They do a lot
special
of good stuff.
effects, post 3D post conversion work.
Yeah, yeah. But like they worked with their animation studio who has done a lot of like work for hire stuff.
Yeah, that's
Um
already a good sign. I noticed there were a
and
shit ton of logos at the beginning of this movie, like just a lot of logos, a
everybody
lot of
wants to be
companies.
attached to a movie called The Garfield movie, you know?
Yeah,
That's
I
what
don't
I'd
know why
say.
you'd want to be attached to, like, I understand why you'd want to be attached to a movie called the Garfield movie, but I don't understand why you'd want to be attached to this movie.
I don't know.
There were a few moments where I was thinking to myself, I just want to go home. I don't want to watch this. This is so absurdly stupid. I didn't really sleep great last night. I was kind of tired and out of it, and and just sensory overload first thing in the morning. Not great. It
Yeah.
also, wait, one more thing about the movie itself. John
Yeah.
said, he literally said, "Did I say his trigger words or something?"
No, that was at the end. That was
Yeah,
closer to the end, yeah.
yeah, no, but John still said it.
Yeah.
They uniron. I think it was actually meant as like a joke, but
Yeah,
still,
did
like
I
using,
say some sort of trigger phrase that caused
yeah,
people to cause them to go outside or whatever?
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like,
Uh,
yeah. I mean,
is that a thing in pet? I don't know, pet culture. You know,
no,
okay,
no, they're like he's like they're, and I'm not saying like it's bad to make jokes about this. I'm just saying it's kind of
yeah,
weird that
yeah.
they would bring it up because trigger words have not really been a term for like quite some time.
There are
Uh,
two separate meanings. There's the one in popular culture, and then there's like not. It's not like an
you mean like
actual medical
Pavlov's
term, but
dog
there's
kind
like
of thing?
the difference between. There's a difference between like the one or there's a slight difference between the one for like I'm not gonna go into it. There is like actual practical applications, and it's more for like mental illness and traumatic experiences. Um, there is like a version in psychiatry that like focuses on like things that remind you of the bad thing that happened before, right? So like it's not just like an annoying phrase, but it is also you know, that which I think they should have probably been aware of when they used it.
Uh,
But
yeah, I mean just in general, I'm gonna
yeah,
to use a phrase you use a lot. Well, maybe
yeah.
not a lot, but like you use it. What are we doing here? That's what I was thinking the whole time. What are we doing here? Like that, no one asked for a Garfield movie. This
Why are
isn't
we
a
sitting
Garfield
here doing
movie.
this?
It spends a lot of time on stuff that it doesn't need to. It feels like it's a lot of padding. Like most of this movie isn't even the heist either. It's not even a good heist movie. That's the thing. That, like you said, they can't. figure out what they want the movie to be. You know, do they want it to be about a father and son learning to bond again? Well, that gets resolved like almost not immediately, but in one scene. Do they
Yeah, that
want it to be
happens
a
like in the
heist
middle of the
movie?
movie.
Do they
Yeah.
want it to be a story about revenge? Do you? I need you to know something. All right. Oh, I
What?
remember what the other tinfoil hat one. The other tinfoil hat conspiracy was that that song that I mentioned was supposed to be in the movie as like a cut sequence, but like
Yeah.
obviously to show. I was waiting for it, and you better be thankful that this isn't real because I was willing to put the lives of every single person I ever knew on this bet.
What?
That's how sure I was
Okay.
it was gonna happen. That they were gonna reveal that white cat was Garfield's mom.
Oh,
I
oh,
was
yeah, yeah, me too.
waiting
I
for
was
it.
like, listen,
Because where's
I
the mom? How come he's mad at his dad but not his mom? His mom wasn't even there the whole time. What do you
that's the
mean?
thing. I was thinking like when they were doing the backstories, I was like, oh, so they're like together, right? Like, there's no way
Yeah.
that when she, when he like lifts her up, and then like they say like we did everything together. There's no way they aren't like, you know,
Yeah,
hanging
it
out
just
for
and then
lack
it
of a
never
better term.
happens. It never comes
Yeah,
up. I think the other big disconnect is that like the dad stuff just coming out of nowhere. We never get time to see Garfield be upset about that before it happens and then he's angry about it. Like we don't get
yeah,
that like time like because they're trying to speedrun showing us a bunch of familiar Garfield stuff, which is fine. And like you said, it should have been more of an office style kind of slice of life movie, which is still risky because slice of life movies don't usually do well.
sure,
But
sure.
for
But they have the
Garfield,
Garfield
yeah,
IP.
but for
Like, what?
Garfield, you should have done that. And
Yeah,
they were setting the movie up to be like that. That's the thing. That's the thing I don't get. You were setting it up to be like that would have actually been really funny and creative and like it would have fit within the Garfield zeitgeist. But they didn't do that because it would have required effort and they had to hurry up and get the movie out. Apparently so bad that they were trying to reach out to other studios to help animate the movie. So that's not
oh, all right.
well. That's what you said, right? Like they were reaching out to DNEG to.
Oh, well, I think that it was just I think that it was just DNEG from the start, but
Uh,
they wanted a company that pretty much entirely did like cleanup slash like work, right? Because they have like a hand in like Nimona apparently, and like finishing that it looks like. So, and they did a little bit of work on Intergalactic. I think they're more of like a support studio to begin with, and what my theory is that like they basically got this support studio to make an entire low budget animated film for them, right?
yeah, I mean, if they wanted to go with the Garfield and his dad thing, then they needed to. It's like they start off the movie with that, but then it turns into like an actual Garfield movie, and then it goes back to doing that, and there's like this huge disconnect, right?
Hmm.
Uh, it just that sequence just kind of makes me wish the whole movie was that because then it goes back to the dad stuff, and you're like, wow, this is not at all what this a Garfield movie should be. And obviously the other issues with like Garfield treating John really nicely,
Yeah.
having some level of respect for John, and having level of respect for Odie, which he shouldn't have, and it it's just a mess. That's all I can say. It's just a mess. Not worth it. The
So
3D has
yeah.
some minor interesting things going on, but I mean, no one's gonna remember this movie. They are gonna remember the live action one before they remember this one.
There's a line in this movie where Garfield says, I didn't realize the importance of salad until this exact moment, right? He basically throws a salad at somebody and
Yeah,
then like, yeah. And then he's like, oh, the salad is only worth like, when it's being thrown at somebody. Well, I didn't realize there was a use for direct to streaming movies
oh
until I saw this
wow.
movie.
That's another thing I was thinking about too. This kind of feels like it could have been direct to streaming, just like Kung Fu
Yeah.
Panda 4, where it was like this doesn't feel like a whole lot of money was put, or at least they didn't have enough resource. Well, this movie just feels like it was very rushed. Uh,
Yeah.
this feels like a first draft of a script.
Yep.
But and the star power of Sam Jackson and Chris Pratt aren't going to be enough to save this, I think.
Yeah, I don't think so. Uh,
No, neither will the Memorial Day weekend, especially with Furiosa getting such great reviews. I think it's
yeah, I've seen it now. I'll I'll save my words on it. But one more thing in conclusion, Rob.
yeah.
So we're gonna go watch Harold and the Purple Crayon, right?
I mean, if you go, I'll go. If
You
I
know
if I
what?
have the money for it, when is that coming out?
Oh my god, I have no fucking clue. Let me
Well,
see.
whenever that comes out, it feels like a September movie. They did show the trailer for that before Garfield, so.
I am so fucking ready for the Smurfs genre to
Oh,
return.
yep, here we
You have
go.
no idea how excited I am for dog shit like this to be like front and center.
Maybe it'll
It's
be
like
good. Who knows? Maybe you'll see it and be like, "Damn, I was way too harsh on this."
the only things that are Elf and Barbie. You can't do it with anything else.
All right, all
Like
right,
it
all
just
right. Well,
doesn't
we're
feel
we're
like the
we're we're,
man
we're talking
child.
about
They
a
even got
completely
Zoe
separate movie.
Deschanel back.
No, yeah, okay, yeah, but we'll wait for
Sorry,
Harold and
sorry,
the Purple Crown. We'll be talking about that. Anyway,
Just
this movie sucks. Save your money. Don't take your
2 out
kid.
of 10.
Take your kids to the pool instead. Take your kids to the pool. You're gonna get way more enjoyment out of that.
Touch
They're gonna
grass.
have more
Rock Band
fun.
Radio 2024.
What?
You told parents to their kids to touch grass.
Yeah, go touch grass. Get a real cat named Garfield. Watch cat videos online. Your kids aren't gonna know the
I
difference.
watched Beethoven. That movie's awesome.
Uh,
Beethoven second specifically.
it's like I said talking about the Galactic Star Cruiser thing. It's like 6,000. Oh no, I didn't say it to you. I said this to my manager. It costs like $6,000 for two people to go to that Galactic Star Cruiser thing, or at least it did when it was still open. Kids aren't gonna know the difference. Like a 5-year-old is not gonna know the difference between a $6,000 vacation and a $600 vacation. And I'm
You can
telling you
put them in a
now,
fucking pillow fort and they'll be
they're
fine.
they're,
Like
they're not gonna know the difference between this cat movie and literally any other cat movie you already got at home. Just show them Paws of Fury or something. I don't know. It's got Samuel L. Jackson in it.
I would not recommend that. But
Yeah,
yes.
take them to the pool. Take them literally anywhere. If you're a Garfield fan, you're not gonna get anything out of this. You're better off just watching the original series of Garfield, or like the original TV series, or maybe even the 2004 movie, which I haven't seen in a while, so maybe it's not that good. I mean, I know it's not good, but I don't know if it's better than this. Uh, at least Garfield's mean to John and Odie in that movie.
Yeah.
So that's Garfield like. It's a shame that more Garfield characters didn't show up. Like I said, Nermal's just a cameo. That little mouse character, it doesn't show up at all. They have all these Garfield characters they can pull from. It's like, why do this outside of just like, you just don't care. But anyway, I
Well,
we
I think you
rambled
answered
long
your
enough.
own question
It
there.
it
And I
it's done.
think we're done.
Yeah, we're done. Thank you guys for checking this out. Remember to go check out Carif_wins on Twitch, and also check out Spirit Guild, link in the description below.
Then remember to subscribe to Rob Band Radio and like and subscribe
Yeah,
and
yeah.
hit the bell
Subscribe,
icon.
hit the bell icon, hit
We
the
don't
like
actually give a
icon.
shit if you hit the bell icon.
Come
The
to my
bell icon is
house.
important, but it's
Don't
not
come to my house. All right,
like on
that's it.
user side bell icon is fucking annoying. I
All
get
right,
that.
all right.
All
We're
right,
ending
cheers.
it. Bye.